Hello. Fascinating things, aren't they, film cameras? They can capture any image you can imagine. High adventure, drama, comedy, horror. They can capture anything the audience could want, except the audience themselves. You see, film is a one-way medium. It can't look at the people looking in. Not until now, that is. Because the first thing we want to do in this film is look at you, the audience, get you in focus. So come on.
You know about Louis XVI, the King of France. You know how, although he was a good man, he wasn't a good king.
And there you are. Smile, please.
Always changing his mind, and he couldn't make decisions.
Hang on. That's not you, is it? Sorry, first time I've done this. Let's try again. And come in, and smile, and...
Now then, we're trying to learn. Will you stand next to the pole?
There you are. Is that you lot?
What do you think of them?
I bet we're closer that time. Now, of course, we can't see you through the camera, but we do have some idea what you look like. We know you're somewhere between those two extremes. We know that because it doesn't matter how much the world changes, people, especially people your age, don't change. Well, not much anyway. In any group, there are always some noisy ones, shy ones, giggly ones, tough ones, not so tough ones, prickly ones, dozy ones, thoughtful ones, laugh-a-minute ones. There are also bright or brainy ones, and not so brainy ones, although school results are often not the result of brains, but of attitude and commitment. Now, you're all committed to growing up, and part of the process is learning about the world around you, both close to home and further afield. But thanks to film and television cameras, your generation knows more about the world than previous generations could even imagine. Your generation have seen the world from outer space, so you know that the world isn't really a vast place. In space, it's a tiny, fragile ball. You know that it's under threat from man, carving up the surface, cutting down rainforests, or polluting the seas and the atmosphere. You may also be beginning to realize that now everyone is becoming aware of the world's problems, it will be your generation that will have the task of putting things right. It's a tremendous task which will require all man's ingenuity, but it must be done. To do it will require all the people of the world working closely together. But that may be difficult, because although we are all people, all human beings, the pictures on your television screens show how different life is from one place to another, and how desperately in need people in some parts of the world really are. The pictures are horrifying, but the statistics are even worse. Every day in this world, 100,000 people die of starvation, 1/3 of them children. That's equivalent to 300 fully laden jumbo jets crashing with no survivors every single day. In this country, well, we're quite wealthy and our standard of living is gradually rising. Yet even so, there are ever more poor, sick and homeless people who need help. Now, thanks to the camera, you're all aware of these problems. In fact, most of you have already done something about it. You've helped with your fundraising efforts for Live Aid, Children in Need or Comic Relief. You may have done a sponsored jog or a swim, or simply have offered some of your spending money to help. No matter what you personally have done, your generation have generously helped raise millions of pounds for very worthy causes. Now, why should young people like you be so generous? Is it all the film and television you see that's made you more aware of the problems and the need to help? Is it the pleadings from people like Billy Connolly and Lenny Henry that have made you generous? None of those would have any effect if there wasn't something deep inside the vast majority of you that told you that helping and caring was the right thing to do. We all tend to do what we think is right. Why? All kids enjoy being kids, but they also want to grow up. And part of the process of growing up is understanding what is right, learning to be honest and trustworthy, first among your mates, otherwise you don't have any mates, and then with other people. You also start to get a distinct feeling as you grow up of what is fair Most of you believing that everyone should have equal opportunities in life. You may not realise it, but you're beginning to adopt Christian principles. Now, you may not go to church, you may not even belong to a Christian family, but you're beginning to understand the difference between right and wrong. It doesn't mean you don't do any wrong, it means you know the difference. Now, some young people, even though they know the difference between right and wrong, seem to reject any feeling of caring for the world or the people in it. They become rebels. Why? It could be, just as they're realising caring is important, they get the distinct feeling that society doesn't care for them, and they opt out. It's a phase a lot of young people go through, but luckily, it's just a phase. The problem really starts when this condition continues. You find yourself more and more apart from society. If this continues, the gap widens and you find yourself totally on the outside. Then it doesn't matter whether you understand Christian values or not. Then it becomes simply a matter of us and them. And life becomes a continuous conflict. Now, conflict is all very well in a fantasy world, and we all like losing ourselves in a fantasy world from time to time. It's a way of opting out, a way of rebelling, if you like. But you can't expect to alter the real world by opting out. If you want to change things for the better, you need to be on the inside, in a position of control. The trouble is, when you're young, it's always somebody else in control. It's always adults directing what you do, rather like television or film directors. What does it take to be in control yourself? Well, whatever it takes, you've got it. Brain power, ability, everything you need to be a responsible member of society. Accept, experience, be patient. Growing up is all about earning positions of trust and responsibility. You've got to give it time and use that time to learn about the world around you. This video is trying to help you do just that. We hope you'll start up project work in which you'll learn about your surroundings and how to improve the world for your future and everyone else's. Making the world a better place isn't easy. In fact, it's a battle. It's more than a battle. Changing the world for the better is a blooming war, mate. No, not a war fought with guns and weapons, and not a pretend war fought on an arcade computer. Quite the opposite. This is a war that saves lives, a war that helps the wounded, a war that repairs and replaces. The sort of war the army has been fighting for years. Nah, not this army, the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army are fighting a war to make the world a better place. But they're fighting that war with kindness and with hard work. They're fighting it with bravery, nerve and guts. And the shooting isn't done with guns. The shooting is done with a camera.
Right, go. That's good. Now come back and try and land on there. That'll do. Okay.
A survival course? A supreme fitness and bodybuilding regime? Nah, this is Peter with his mates enjoying a SABAC weekend. SABAC stands for Salvation Army Boys Adventure Corps. And up and down the country, lads like Peter have regular outings like this, where they try their hand at rock climbing, canoeing, or raft building. Peter found out about SABAC through a schoolmate and started joining in, even though he never went to church.
I saw a dog.
Why? Well, among other things, it's great fun. Susan is an old hand, joining when she was 8. She's 15 now, and in that time she's achieved bronze, silver and gold awards in the Army Awards Scheme. She was a junior soldier and a Corps cadet. During that time, she's also learnt to play the cornet and is now a member of the junior band. Recently, things changed for Susan. At 14, she decided to become a senior soldier in the Salvation Army, an adult member. This is Terry, a really happy personality, yet his life hasn't had much happiness in it at all. He arrived at a Salvation Army children's home, already in trouble with the police after he'd been thrown out of his home by his stepfather. Although he had bad attitude problems, a Salvation Army officer with a similar background took him under his wing and gradually gained Terry's trust and confidence. Once his circumstances changed, Terry changed too, and for the better. Most, once they are on their feet, thank the Salvation Army and venture off into the world on their own. However, Terry is staying on to do for others what the Salvation Army did for him. Now those youngsters aren't much different from you, are they? And yet at such an early age, they committed themselves to helping society through the Salvation Army. So what are they heading for? What does the Salvation Army do? Are you ready? The Salvation Army Missing Persons operation is often featured on radio and television. The regular officers of this unit deal with around 5,000 cases a year, of which around 70% are traced, so that at the very least, news and information can be relayed to both parties. Many missing persons are young people who just leave home. Every night, 365 nights a year, the station patrols cover London stations, helping people who are lonely or often confused and frightened to find a bed for a night or two while they sort themselves out. Luckily, many young people do find jobs and make friends, while many give up quickly and return home. Sadly for others, things go from bad to worse, and they join the many hundreds of people who regularly sleep out on the streets of our major cities. Volunteers from the Salvation Army can be found most nights touring the streets, offering hot soup and sandwiches, and often more positive help, first gaining a person's trust and then helping and encouraging them on the road back to a normal life. There will be many more people on the streets, but for the 50 hostels around the country that provide shelter and a decent, clean bed for the night. This hostel is used as a temporary accommodation, while this one is one of 40 residential homes for elderly people. There are also 8 centres for alcoholics, 7 centres for children and young people, 30 community centres, 628 senior citizens clubs, and 1,124 evangelistic centres, all with ever-open doors for people with problems. Now all this costs the Salvation Army around £50 million a year. But where does the money come from? Well, there are certain grants, and over the years trusts have been set up to give the movement a regular income. But still, millions have to be raised by the Salvationists themselves, and they do it, often voluntarily and usually with a smile. That's perhaps the first thing you notice about Salvation Army people. They tend to smile a lot. Now why? Well, remember a time when you've been lonely? Or do you remember perhaps someone at your school who stayed on their own, away from everybody else? What's the first thing you notice about them? The lonely people don't smile very much. Now think about your happiest times, the times when you laughed the most. I bet at those times you are surrounded by friends. That's the secret of the Salvation Army smile. The Salvation Army is a big happy family, and the happiness stems not so much from jokes or good times, although Salvationists enjoy those like anyone else. No, the smile comes from belonging to a family who share together in bad times as well as good. But more importantly, a family who share in a belief and love of God. That's the secret of the Salvation Army smile. A smile that is worldwide and about 125 years old. In the working class England of 125 years ago, there was very little to smile about. Housing conditions were atrocious, and wages for those who had work were pitifully small. And yet, a great proportion of the money was spent on alcohol, and drunkenness was a vast social problem. In 1865, William Booth, a former Methodist preacher, began preaching in the East End of London, pleading that alcohol and a lack of Christian beliefs was the cause of most social problems of the day. Booth must have been a very effective preacher, because night after night he was assaulted and stoned by the people who earned their living selling alcohol. Slowly but surely, Booth gained converts who gave up drinking and became practicing Christians. But it was a desperate struggle for the next 13 years. It was more than a struggle. It was a war. And so Booth and his wife Catherine named their movement the Salvation Army. Immediately, the idea of a Christian movement actually fighting sin caught the imagination of the public. For one thing, the violence against them increased. In 1882, 669 Salvationists were attacked. One of them, Captain Susanna Beatty, was actually stoned and kicked while on duty, and later died from her injuries. But the impetus within the army was growing stronger all the time. In 1890, General Booth published his book, In Darkest England and the Way Out. He noted there were hundreds of thousands of horses pulling cabs around London, each one fed and sheltered and looked after so that it was fit for work. He pointed out that millions of men weren't treated with anywhere near the same respect. General Booth immediately set up the first job centres. He bought a farm where people were trained for work. He helped people emigrate to countries where the opportunities were better. He provided hostels for the homeless and money for tools for tradesmen. In the 9 years up to 1900, the Salvation Army served 27 million cheap meals, lodged 11 million homeless people, and found jobs for many thousands of unemployed. Booth's book was used as a blueprint for setting up Britain's welfare state, offering free education, medical welfare, and unemployment and sickness benefit, a system which became the envy of the world. When I was a lad, every schoolroom had a map like this, and we were very proud of it, because all the pink bits belonged to the British Empire, and it was said the sun never sets on the British Empire, because it was stretched all over the world. Now today the empire's broken up, although most of the countries still belong to the Commonwealth. But if there's an empire still on which the sun never sets, it has to be the Salvation Army's empire, because today there are Salvation Army workers in over 90 countries worldwide. In many parts of the world, the shortage of food is the major problem, which is why in the last year there have been 1,500 food distribution centres set up by the Salvation Army worldwide. Nearly 15,000 elderly people are resident in 258 centres worldwide. For the young, there are over 1,000 schools educating 280,000 children, while children's homes, nurseries, camps, holiday homes and clubs bring happiness to 20,000 kids every year. In all countries, there are people who are sick and need attention. Worldwide, the Salvation Army treats over 205,000 inpatients and nearly 3 million outpatients. But the Salvation Army is also involved in special treatment with 105 homes for alcoholics, many of these in otherwise wealthy countries. In prisons throughout the world, over 250,000 people were visited last year, and 25,000 received help on leaving prison. All this is carried out in 127 different languages by 26,000 officers and many thousands of unpaid volunteer helpers. A vast army of people, all fighting under one flag. And here is the flag that hasn't changed much since it was first designed in 1878. But what does the design signify? Well, the colour you probably notice least is the blue border. Now, blue was chosen to represent purity, giving us the idea that you can lead a pure life without sin with the help of God. Now, to do that is never easy, which is why we have the red colour here. This represents the blood of Jesus Christ, the blood he sacrificed for each and every one of us. In the center used to be the sun, but now it's a star representing the fire and energy of the Holy Spirit to guide and help us. The motto of the Salvation Army really sums it up. Blood and fire, the weapons with which to carry on the fight. The Salvation Army story is an incredible tale of overcoming obstacles and barriers. But you might ask, what has the Salvation Army and you got in common? Remember we talked earlier about you beginning to have thoughts about what is right and what is wrong? Well, the Salvation Army and all their officers, in forming their code of behaviour, have had the very same thoughts. After all, they're basic Christian thoughts. The only difference is, soldiers of the Salvation Army practice those thoughts every single day. If you did the things that Salvationists do, I know you would find yourself caring in a similar way.
Here we are then. Sandwich there, isn't it? Cup of soup, right it. Sandwiches and cakes around the side.
And if you examine what the Salvation Army do, now, as a project at school, you learn a lot about your town and about people, a lot about what's wrong with the world today. Some soup? Yeah. There, I said.
Soup, what's wrong with it?
Okay. You will also learn what all Salvationists have learned, that whatever you do, if you do it with the utmost drive and energy, it doesn't matter how successful you are, you'll always be amazed at how rewarding it is. So come on, start your project. Get your camera out, that's your eye and your brain. Turn it on yourself occasionally to make sure you're functioning properly. But most of all, turn it outward, because it's outward-looking people that the world needs most. Look at what's right and what's wrong in the world and try to do something about it. And if, in your project, you visit the Salvation Army, well, what will you find? Well, for a start, you'll always find lots of smiling, welcoming faces. And at every Salvation Army centre, there's an ever-open door. But doors are two-way, you know. You can walk in, and you can walk out. The Salvation Army won't make demands on you. The contribution you give is up to you. The Salvation Army will always offer you friendship and understanding and a whole range of activities. And they also believe very strongly that enjoying yourself is a vital part of life. They also believe in the work they are doing. Many men have raised armies to change the world by force. The Salvation Army is doing it more gently, but also more relentlessly. Look closely and you will learn how you can make a contribution to the world and perhaps help in making it a better place. And just think, if everyone had the same beliefs as the Salvation Army, a belief in helping those who need help, of caring and having time to care. If everyone had those beliefs, then this family we call the human race would really be a united family. Right? Bye.